So Downton Abbey has officially come to a close, and I have my full review for the grand finale right now. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well, and thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to click here on another video where we're going to be talking about the finale to one of the best shows ever made, and that movie is called Downton Abbey, the grand finale. Directed by Simon Curtis and once again from the mind of Julian Fellowes, this film once again stars people like Hugh, Bonneville, Michelle Dockery, Elizabeth McGovern, Jim Carter, Laura Carmichael, and so many more. So here we are, talking about the finale of Downton Abbey. Let's start this off really quickly by taking you guys back. I haven't covered the series of Downton Abbey because I watched that show before I ever had a YouTube channel, but I actually rewatched the entirety of the show earlier this year, showing it to my wife for her very first time with the intentions to do a live stream before this movie came out. And I never got around to it. I wanted to do just a big live stream where people can kind of tune in and talk about it. And I still plan to do that. I've had my notes written out for that exact purpose since I did the rewatch. But yeah, I watched the show initially because my mom got me into it and I absolutely loved it. Fell in love with it more than I thought I was going to. And over the course of the last few years since I've had this channel, of course, the movies have come out. This being the third and last one that is not only capping it off in terms of film, but specifically is a finale to the franchise. And so, yeah, I have covered the first film, I have covered the second film, and I'm now covering the third film with an intention to do a retrospective, I think, on the entire franchise somewhere soon. But with all that said, let me make it abundantly clear. I think if you're going into this movie and you're wondering, hey, I've never seen Downton Abbey, is this a good entryway? No, this is the finale. This is a movie that absolutely expects that you know who these characters are and that you know what their journey has been up to this point. It does not spoon feed things to you. It does not re-explain dynamics to you. It does not re-explain names that they're dropping throughout the course of the film. And while I'm sure you'd be able to follow this film enough if you watch it and you have no context, the reality is majority of this film you're not really going to emotionally connect to because this is very much playing off of everything that's come before. So I just wanted to make that abundantly clear for anybody who was curious, but most notably I also wanted to mention that I'm going to speak about this as if you've seen Downton Abbey before and you're watching this as a fan of the franchise. So that's your warning. With all that said, here's my spoiler-free thoughts, but at first, let's get into what this film is all about. Set in the early 1930s, the film follows the Crawley family as they face financial strain, societal scandal, and shifting norms. Lady Mary's high-profile divorce sparks controversy, and while this is all going on, a younger generation rises both upstairs and below the stairs. And amidst all this, a modern American figure, Gus Sambrook, offers a hopeful path forward amid a changing world. And I'm happy to start this off by saying I really enjoyed myself with this film, and the best way I can kind of just wrap up my thoughts on this really quickly is that this is a very touching send-off to a very beautiful series. This film in a lot of ways is a love letter. If you are a fan of the Downton Abbey franchise, then there's going to be so much about this film that you are going to enjoy. Not only with all the characters that are the main characters that you'll get time spent with here, but also some of the smaller characters. There are elements about this film that are going to tug on the heart, especially by the time you get to the very end. The final 5 to 10 minutes of this film will definitely start to get the waterworks building up, and I found myself tearing up as the movie was coming to a close. With that said, I do have some gripes. I didn't love it as much as I was hoping to. As I was walking out, the representative who was running this press screening that I saw it at did ask me, was it everything you expected it to be? She seemed to have thought so, but I was a little bit torn on a couple of things, and we'll get into that in just a second. But I want to start this off with the positives, which is that if you like Downton Abbey, I mean, the charm, the wit, the humor, the silliness, the drama of it all is so present. The costume design, the set design, the locations used, all the things that make it a great practical world is so good. I mean, especially in the costume department and in terms of everything that they do to make it feel like a British period piece. It does all the things it needs to do to put you into the early 1930s and kind of show that transition that the franchise has always really been good about. You know, I think that's part of the fun of Downton Abbey is seeing this family who is, you know, living in the past in a lot of ways, have to deal with the incoming future that is not stopping in any way, shape, or form, that they're just kind of struggling to kind of deal with and adapt to. And it's been interesting to see which characters have adapted to the future a little bit easier, which ones are still battling it even in this film. And so I think that this film does a good job of kind of having those dynamics that you come to expect from Downton Abbey while doing some fresh, fun things. More than anything, also just honoring these characters and giving you nice touching moments between the characters that you want to see have touching moments in this film. When it comes down to the narrative, this is where I was struggling a little bit, and I would just mainly say that while you have all these great moments and there's tons of that witty banter and just great dialogue between the characters and some fantastically charming moments and just really just comforting, touching moments between the characters, and especially some really great send-offs as our characters are going into new chapters of their lives, many of them not really going to be in a place where they're going to see each other again. There are elements about this film that feel very samey to a lot of the things that we've seen in the franchise before. In that synopsis read, I spoke about scandal, which is very much a big prevalent part of this franchise, but outside of it, I also mentioned the fact that they're dealing with financial issues. That's also been a huge part of the Downton Abbey franchise over the course of seasons and the movies that have come before. The notion of having to sell property, the notion of having to move away from this rich lifestyle that they've had and move into the future. And so that's been a consistent theme in a lot of storytelling in Downton Abbey that I was hoping they wouldn't necessarily focus on here. And I understand why in terms of what this story is doing, but at times it did feel like we were kind of regurgitating certain things that are similar to what we've seen in this franchise already. And so I was a little bit torn on that front. On top of that, you also have a love interest who's introduced here once again for Mary, and Mary has been a character who has had many love interests over the course of the franchise through the 6 seasons of television and into each individual film, even with her flirting with the character in the last film while being married to another character. She's a character that's always kind of mixed up in some sort of convoluted or oftentimes just complicated love dilemma or some sort of romantic situation, and this film is no different, with them introducing a new character, the character of Gus Sambrook, who's played by Alessandro Nivola, and he is kind of, starting to kind of have these little cute moments with Mary that get a little spicy, and I won't say much more about his character and how things play out there, but what I will say is it does feel like the film is relying on a lot of tropes that the franchise is very well known for at this point, and as a grand finale, I was hoping that they would just more so focus on all of the characters we already have instead of doing the things that we've already seen this franchise do before and seen these characters overcome in the past, like the financial issues or the various, revolving door of men that tend to come into Mary's life as she consistently makes poor choices as to how to handle those things. With those gripes aside, though, I do still think that this film has a lot of really touching moments and some great send-offs for some of our characters. I do wish, though, that there were some characters that had a little bit more screen time. I think when you call this the grand finale and you have so many characters sprinkled into this film that only do have maybe a couple of moments to shine, it's one of those situations where this film at times just felt like a longer episode of one of the shows, which I would say in general that the finales and the 2 movies we've gotten to this point have already pretty much felt like that, right? Just really extended episodes of Downton Abbey. And I think that this film, maybe more so than the other 2 films that Downton Abbey has released, I think suffers from that a little bit more, feeling like it's the finale, but almost feeling like there could be more. I was hoping for a grander sense of finality, because while this film certainly has finality, it ends in a place that if this is it, that's okay. There was certainly an element that felt like, hey, I could see them 10, 15 years down the line starting this up again when everybody's a little more aged up and picking up with where we are, because it does leave things in a really kind of interesting place. And I would argue that I think that the finale of the show is more of a proper send-off to this entire franchise than this movie is. Now, with that said, though, I still think that there's so many moments in this film that are great, and I love these characters, and I love this world, and I love the filmmaking. It's a very well-made film. I love the cinematography. It's lush, it's beautiful, the scenery, the locations, all elevated again by what I've already mentioned. Great costumes, great, hair and makeup, great set design and locations used, all these things that make the world feel alive and take you back to the 1930s. There's nothing more amazing to me when it comes down to a period piece than something that's able to port you back back to a time where you truly feel like these characters and these people are all really in that time. And I think that Downton Abbey, the grand finale, just like the rest of the franchise, does an incredible job of doing just that. So when I look at this in comparison to the rest of the franchise, I think this is an incredible installment, slipping you right in. I think a lot of fans are going to have a great time at the theater, laughing with these characters, spending time with these characters, having these fun, cheeky, silly Downton Abbey moments. It's a warm film, it's a cute film, it's a lovable film. But if, you know, I'm being critical on it because that's what I do here on YouTube. If I'm being honest, I don't necessarily know that it was the biggest finale I was hoping for. I think grand finale had me hoping for a little bit more. I think that they could have spent a little bit more time with certain characters. There was a couple story beats I think that were really not that integral, that kind of took away from the time spent with the characters I really wanted to see in the film. But I think when it comes down to all of our main cast of characters, all of the Crawleys, all of the servants, I mean, this film did a great job of bringing them all in, allowing them to have their fun, cute, like silly moments. I look forward to revisiting this somewhere down the line. And specifically the last 5 minutes of this film are specifically designed to make you go, do you remember what this franchise has made you feel over the course of time? And just get you with some teary eyes as it goes into credits. I think a lot of people are going to be leaving the theater with a smile on. I think a lot of people are going to be leaving the theater with tears in their eyes, talking outside, just being like, oh, I want to go home and rewatch the series. But as somebody who just did a rewatch of the series earlier this year, just a few months ago, it did make me feel like there have been greater finales to certain seasons, or just a greater, finale to the series that they did on TV than this was for the entire season, or in the entire show, I should say. But with all that said, I mean, that's just me being critical because I want to try to balance out my review here. I ultimately really enjoyed Downton Abbey, the grand finale. I do think this is a film, again, that is just warm and touching, and just is going to make me miss these characters more than anything. My gripes are solely coming from the fact that I wanted more with these characters. I wanted more time spent with them. This film could have been 3 hours. Honestly, I do think it's a film that could have benefited from another genuine 30-40 minutes of screen time to maybe flesh out a couple more story beats and maybe just kind of subtract some of the other ones, to be honest, that just felt like side characters we really didn't need for the finale of a franchise that already has a lot of characters. So that's going to be my thoughts on Downton Abbey, the grand finale. What are you guys thinking? Are you planning on checking it out? Have you already checked it out? Whatever the case may be, leave any and all comments down below, and I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.